I had been in Iraq for a year. On July 7th, 2007, I was going at night with a recon across the street with some Iraqi soldiers, and they shot at us. I got shot in the head, and I got what's called a penetrating traumatic brain injury. Basically, my skull was crushed.
TBI stands for traumatic brain injury, and it's just a fancy term for head injury. You can get it by falling down the stairs, you can get it by having a car accident on the highway, or by being assaulted. The military obviously is at high risk for incurring it by virtue of their job, both in combat and outside of it.
Within 24 hours, he was on a flight to Bethesda Naval. When I arrived to Bethesda Naval, Pat's condition was a lot worse than I had imagined. The first morning, I was briefed by the neurosurgeons and some of the doctors, and they gave me a long laundry list of things that could go wrong in the first couple of weeks. But the thing that really stood out to me was the fact that he could have a seizure. And these seizures, if they happen, they could lead to his death. So every day was a win that he didn't have a seizure.
Some patients who have traumatic brain injury develop epilepsy afterwards, called post-traumatic epilepsy. And it can happen within weeks, months, or years afterwards. Approximately 80% of patients who do develop epilepsy after traumatic brain injury do it in the first 2 years or so after the head injury. And what we're not all that great at right now is predicting which patients with the risk for developing epilepsy actually will develop it.
I was in RIC in Chicago, and I had been there for 3 months, and everything was going good for me. Speech was okay. PT was going pretty good.
Yeah, making a lot of progress. It was good. About 2 a.m, the whole bed was shaking. I woke up. Pat was making horrible noises, and I thought, this is it. We were doing rehabilitation. He survived Iraq, all this, and now he's dying right here in front of me. So I ran out, got the nurses, and they came in and identified it as a grand mal seizure. It lasted about 5 minutes, and then things calmed down, and then another started, which is considered a rolling seizure, which is very dangerous. He was on a dilantin drip for 24 hours. He was almost comatose for a week. And when he came back to us, he'd lost speech, he'd lost cognitive function that he'd gained, and he couldn't get out of his wheelchair again. And this began the seizure cycle. So this began trying different medications almost every month. He would seize, he would go backwards. It was a horrible cycle that took us almost a year to get out of. And these seizures were just really getting in the way of progress. And we were afraid they were going to, and probably did, honestly, affect his long-term recovery.
CURE Epilepsy's DoD Post-Traumatic Epilepsy Initiative is a unique project in that it is team science. So it brings laboratories and clinical projects from different labs, different parts of the country, with different interests in the field of post-traumatic injury. And they worked together. So they share ideas together, they share their results, the goal of which is to better understand how epilepsy develops after head injury, and how we can better predict its development.
There's a couple of months that go by before these guys usually have their first seizure. So if they can treat them early, they might even be able to find treatment that prevents the whole epilepsy cycle.
That is my ultimate goal, to develop treatments to prevent epilepsy after head injury. In our project, we're looking for biomarkers that would better tell us who is at high risk for developing post-traumatic epilepsy. A biomarker is an indicator, whether it be something in the blood or an electrophysiological measurement, that tells you that a disease is occurring. A good example of that are the blood enzymes that are used routinely for diagnosis of heart attack. So we're evaluating patients with bad head injury who do have a risk of developing post-traumatic epilepsy. And we're looking at their blood for genes and proteins to see whether those can tell us better who is at very high risk of developing post-traumatic epilepsy.
If we could just figure out some of these biological markers and genetic factors, it also might lead to better treatment in general, better drugs with less side effects, which would save so much pain, suffering, even death from these service members as they're trying to rehabilitate after sustaining such horrible injuries.
Approximately 5% of all epilepsy is caused by head injury, but there's another 15% that's caused by other acute brain insults like stroke or infection. And between the three of them, about 20% of all epilepsy is caused by these insults. And we know when they happen, and if we can bring in treatment that prevents epilepsy after them, that would really make a tremendous difference in people's lives.
I just think it's the greatest thing. They can keep going, the CURE Epilepsy and the DOD, and they can figure it out. And so people like me and other soldiers, they wouldn't have to take any medicine at all. And that would be so great. That's kind of what I'm looking for myself.